I think that presentation was very interesting because we're talking about a technology, as Jay said, that's 20 years old. And yet, look how much impact it can have in today's B2Me environment. Very interesting. Next up, we have Shea Felix from Endicia. And Shea will talk a little bit about delivering those packages. No, you got it right there, the little green.
Got it. Whoa. Good. All right, I think we're good now. Loud enough, I could just talk. So, hi everyone, Shea Felix with Endicia, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about postal innovation, but more specifically as it relates to e-commerce. Just as a disclaimer, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to be kind of focused around USPS in that space, and there's a very good reason for that. With Stamps.com and Endicia coming together, we're a very big part of the USPS community. When you look at our reach within USPS itself, over 30% of all priority mail shipments, all international shipments, go through our software for USPS today. When you look at small packages in first class, nearly half of all USPS goes through our software. So you'll have to excuse me for being very specific to USPS, but that's just my comfort zone for what we do. When you look at e-commerce as a whole, I mean, this slide and this graph we get from Forrester is not anything of a surprise to people, that it's been very steady growth in the past, and as you look forward in e-commerce for the US, it's going to continue to grow at a nice pace. But what's interesting about e-commerce is the influences of shipping itself. It was kind of interesting when I think back, and it's over 10 years ago. I used to work for USPS a while ago, and I used to work with eBay specifically. I remember a time when eBay did not have a shipping platform. They didn't even have tools where they listed the shipping services. And they actually came to USPS with some research, and they said, you know, our #1 pain point is shipping. We need to solve shipping. And the reason why they wanted to solve shipping is because they knew that solving shipping would drive commerce. And even though they were the masters of online marketing and auction place and taking payments with PayPal, it was shipping that really needed to drive their growth. And if you fast forward from those 10 years and you talk to anyone in the marketplaces, whether it's Amazon or eBay, the conversation is still around innovation in shipping and the importance for shipping to drive e-commerce. And when you look at the last 5 years of some of the innovations that have happened in shipping, in e-commerce, some of them tie back to shipping. I'm sure we all remember a time when it was very painful before free shipping, right? You used to make your decisions in the cart about not just the price of the product, but based on the shipping cost. And then returns. There was a time where it was impossible to think of returns as free. But now, if you're going to shop for something online, the returns aren't free, or it's not the best possible experience for you, you may not even buy that product. So there was a point in time where the merchants and the sellers, and by the way, I should go ahead and say, when I talk about that volume with USPS that we do, most of that is centered around small to medium-sized businesses. So some of the videos we saw earlier, those aren't really our customers necessarily. We're on the smaller end, but doing a lot of business there. So when you look at those smaller guys and what they were doing back in the day, they were trying to figure out how to differentiate themselves because their products were very similar. And the way they did that was through shipping. Now you fast forward, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of those things that were new back then are now commonplace. So now it takes it back to the seller, back to the merchant, to focus on their product. How do I make my product better? How do I make my service better? Where shipping now has become a staple of innovation that they use to talk about their product. What's also interesting is what's happening with the marketplaces and the platforms. When I look back in the history, you know, of the stuff I used to do with eBay, and even attending like eBay conferences and things like that, you had a very dedicated set of sellers that just used eBay. And they sold on that platform, and they're 100% focused on it. It was almost like a religion to them to sell on the platform. And now look what's happening. It's very rare that you find any serious seller that sells on one platform. They're selling on Amazon, they're selling on eBay, on Etsy. They maybe have their own marketplace place with their own website. They're looking for as many channels as possible to sell. And that puts a lot of pressure on the marketplaces to control one very important piece as it relates to shipping, and that's data. I mean, we talked about data earlier, but if you're going to have that many stovepipes, if you're going to have that many reaches into different marketplaces, you have to make it easier for the data to come out and the data to be transferable into shipping. It used to be back in the day the most important part of shipping was a shipping label. What we find on our side, the most important part of shipping is the data that creates the shipping label. Because if the data is not in sync, if the data is different from platform to platform, it's going to take what should be a very seamless transaction and make it very complicated very soon. So it's interesting when you look at the marketplaces today, what are they doing for innovation? Well, they're finding ways to offer better shipping solutions. So it's kind of transferred now from the sellers and the merchants figuring out how to differentiate themselves with shipping to now feeling like they have a good base of options. And now the marketplaces are competing with themselves to put out the best possible shipping products, whether it be the work that Amazon's doing or eBay with the GSP program. Everyone is looking for a way to innovate. I shouldn't say with pricing because you told me not to say that pricing is innovation. But a lot of the solutions that are coming out there are driving the pricing down, and that's a form of innovation. So it's very interesting how that switched over to the marketplaces. But it doesn't stop there. Another very big concept for the retailers is I have an audience, I want to cater to that audience. I can't just live in a digital world. I want to find a way to do ship from store. And ship from store could be hugely successful for any of the retailers out there. And I'm going to have to look at the chart because I can never remember all the numbers. So 93% said that they had positive revenue uptick from ship from store, right? I mean, that's a pretty big number. And so when you think about ship from store and what's needed to do that, it's not really different from what you need to do to be successful in the online or the digital world. So there are a few things that you need to make sure happen. Well, one is it needs to be easy to use. We think of user experience from a digital standpoint in terms of the customer using it, but now easy to use transfers over to that retail person working at POS. And you'll measure that in terms of how many minutes it takes for them to complete a transaction, because for that retailer, that's nothing but cost. The other is reduction in shipment errors. If you're going to collect data through a ship from store experience, it can't be different from a normal digital experience. You want the addresses to be valid, you want an easy way to print the labels and get the package prepped and be ready to ship. And oh, by the way, when it comes to shipping, now you have bigger concerns because in ship from store, you might want to have same-day service or hourly service because you're going to be in a local area. So whatever your strategy is for your online website, if you want a deferred low-cost method to get free shipping, you now have to look at different options out there to how to get shipping same day or within hours. And of course, the same principles of e-commerce apply from ship from store. Tracking, visibility. It's almost impossible to do any e-commerce shipment without those basic standards. So one thing I'm going to touch on really quickly on my side is something I call hybrid solutions, right? So it used to be when you looked at a shipping carrier, FedEx, UPS, USPS, and maybe you made those decisions based on economy or you made it based on service or speed. But for anyone who was trying to figure out what carrier to use, it was a pretty simple path, I think, for most. But there's really been an explosion of different options that are happening in the marketplace, from local courier services like Google Express to these cross-border hybrid services involving multiple carriers and consolidators, many of which we work with today. And it's been a very interesting time the last 18 months of how many new options are out there, all meant to do one thing, help keep shipping costs down, knowing if they keep shipping costs down, that'll help fuel e-commerce. One of them that we did recently, as much as we use USPS and we love working with USPS, honestly, the service to Latin America was not what we wanted. And that's no fault to USPS because they rely on a very broken Latin American postal network. So we decided that we're going to look for the best of best, to use USPS for the domestic service, find someone who can clear commercially through the best possible clearance process to reduce delays in customs, and then we're going to find someone who has a strong network of local courier services to give us tracking and reliable service. So as much as we would even want to stay with USPS for every shipment, we had to invest and look into these hybrid options, which by the way aren't easy to do. They do take a little bit of work to create innovative solutions like that, but it's something that we desperately needed to do to try to remain competitive ourselves as a shipping solution provider. So the last thing I'm going to leave with you is I think it's a very exciting time for shipping and technology. I like to refer to it as a renaissance because there's so many fun things going on. A lot of things that I think I know that I don't know that I learn every single day, and I think a lot of this has happened really, and like I said, in the last 18 and maybe 24 months. But thank you very much.
Good. Well, I think we have a sort of a good representation of some of the thinking along the lines of innovation. A couple things that come up. pretty captured by the packed robot. And I want to ask Ramesh, where is that in action? Is it in action yet?
So we are actually unboxing system on Friday. I have a VIP coming on Wednesday to a major head of state of a small country coming to unveil it. So we are launching it next Wednesday. We are in conversations with a few major e-commerce and brick and mortar retailers in terms of pilots. We'll probably have the first units ready to ship by the end of the summer. So right now it's in demo, what I would call beta stage if I was looking at software.
Great, thank you. Any questions out there? We only have time for a couple, but we'd love to have them. In the back.
Two different questions. One for the gentleman from Bell & Howell. Are you getting any customers who have interest in leveraging commercial inkjet print technology for promotional purposes for your wrap technology?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think last year when we did the first prototypes, we had major, including my old partners from HP, call me and say they're actually producing corrugated stock, which is pre-printed to be used, whether it's fan fold or rolled stock. Yes, absolutely. But I think there's more interest in putting marketing materials with the object before you wrap it, rather than actually using wrap.
Thank you. And the second question is on the SMS communication. Do you think that there is a potential for SMS blocking of communication similar to no calls, no